I took a freelance job climbing a 2,000-foot radio tower. The second rule told me to unclip my safety harness. I have been an independent tower climber for the better part of a decade. My job involves inspecting, repairing, and upgrading the equipment mounted on massive radio and television broadcast antennas. It is a highly specialized field that requires specific certifications and a complete absence of the fear of heights. A few weeks ago, I was facing severe financial difficulties. The winter season is usually slow for independent contractors, and I was months behind on my rent. I spent every night scrolling through various online job boards looking for short-term contracts to keep myself afloat. That is when I found the listing. The post was vague, lacking any company name or corporate branding. It simply asked for a certified high-steel technician available for an immediate overnight inspection of a remote broadcast structure. The pay offered for a single 8-hour shift was staggering. It was the kind of money that would clear all my debts and secure my living situation for an entire year. I sent a message to the provided contact link detailing my experience and attaching my certifications. I received a reply less than 10 minutes later. The message contained no formal greeting. It only provided a set of GPS coordinates located deep within a vast, unpopulated desert region, along with instructions to arrive exactly at midnight. The message stated that the payment had already been placed in an escrow account and would be released the moment the inspection was completed. I packed my climbing gear, loaded my heavy tool bags into the back of my truck, and drove out of the city as the sun was setting. The drive took hours. I left the main highway long before reaching the coordinates, navigating down a series of rough, unpaved service roads that kicked up thick clouds of dust behind my tires. The landscape grew increasingly desolate. There were no streetlights, no other vehicles, and no signs of human habitation. The desert was an ocean of black sand and scrub brush, illuminated only by the pale light of the moon. I finally reached a high chain-link fence topped with barbed wire. A heavy padlock secured the gate. According to the instructions I had received on my phone, the key to the padlock was hidden beneath a painted rock near the fence post. I found the key, unlocked the gate, and drove my truck into the compound. The radio tower was impossible to comprehend until I was standing directly beneath it. It was a staggering 2,000 feet of triangular steel lattice rising straight up into the dark sky. To put that into perspective, it was substantially taller than most of the tallest skyscrapers in the world. Thick steel guy wires anchored the massive structure to the desert floor, stretching out into the darkness under immense tension. Every few hundred feet, a bright red aviation light blinked slowly, warning distant aircraft to stay away. The top of the tower completely disappeared into the blackness of the night. I parked my truck near the concrete base of the tower and turned off the engine. The silence of the desert was profound, broken only by the low, haunting sound of the wind rushing through the steel lattice above me. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out of the cab. Resting on the lowest rung of the access ladder was a small, heavy-duty plastic equipment case. I had been told the necessary inspection tools would be provided on site. I opened the case. Inside, I found a specialized digital diagnostic meter, a fresh pair of heavy leather climbing gloves, and a single sheet of thick, laminated paper. I directed my flashlight onto the paper. It was a handwritten note completely devoid of any technical instructions regarding the diagnostic meter. Instead, it listed 3 highly specific rules. Never look up past the topmost blinking red aviation light. If the guy wires begin to vibrate to the rhythm of a song, unclip your safety harness for exactly 3 seconds. Do not acknowledge the birds. They are not birds. I stood there in the freezing desert wind, staring at the laminated paper. I felt a brief surge of anger. The high steel industry is a tight-knit community, and experienced climbers often play elaborate pranks on new guys or freelancers. I assumed this was a hazing ritual designed to scare a contractor working alone in the dark. The rules were absurd. The second rule in particular went against every fundamental survival instinct a tower climber possesses. You never, under any circumstances, unclip your safety harness entirely while on the structure. We use a twin-tailed lanyard system. You clip one hook to a steel rung, step up, clip the second hook higher up, and then unclip the first one. You are always attached to the tower. Unclipping completely means relying solely on your grip strength, and a sudden gust of wind at 1,000 feet will peel you off the ladder in an instant. I shoved the laminated note into my jacket, dismissing it as a childish attempt to unnerve me. I strapped on my heavy climbing harness, checked the locking mechanisms on my carabiners, slung the diagnostic meter over my shoulder, and began the ascent. It was exactly 2 in the morning. Climbing a 2,000-foot vertical ladder is a grueling test of physical endurance. You settle into a methodical rhythm. Step, pull, clip, unclip. Step, pull, clip, unclip. The muscles in your arms and legs begin to burn within the first few hundred feet. The temperature drops steadily the higher you go, and the wind grows much stronger, completely unobstructed by the terrain below. By the time I reached the 500-foot mark, the ground was a distant, dark memory. The only things that existed were the cold steel of the ladder, the sweeping beam of my headlamp, and the vast, empty darkness surrounding me. I paused on a small graded resting platform to catch my breath and drink some water. The structure swayed gently in the wind. This is entirely normal for tall towers. They are engineered to flex. I felt completely isolated, separated from the rest of the world by a vertical mile of empty air. I continued climbing. The hours dragged on. I passed the 1,000-foot mark, moving with my focus narrowed entirely to the next steel rung in front of my face. The isolation was intense, pressing heavily against my mind. I reached the primary resting platform located at 1,500 feet. This was the largest platform on the structure, situated where the thickest set of upper guy wires anchored to the main mast. I clipped both of my safety lanyards to the thick steel railing, leaned back, and let my harness take my weight. My breathing was heavy and ragged in the thin, cold air. As I rested, the nature of the wind changed. The steady, howling rush of air shifted. The thick steel guy wires stretching out into the darkness began to vibrate. It was different from the random, chaotic vibration caused by heavy wind. It was rhythmic. The massive cables were humming. The sound was deep and resonant, traveling down the length of the steel and vibrating through the grating beneath my boots. The humming slowly organized itself into a distinct melodic tune. It sounded like an old, slow orchestral piece played entirely through the groaning tension of industrial steel cables. A cold wave of genuine panic washed over me. My brain tried to find an explanation. I told myself it was just an acoustic anomaly, a strange harmonic resonance caused by the specific speed of the wind hitting the tensioned wires. But the melody was too structured, and it felt deliberate. I remembered the laminated note sitting in my pocket. If the guy wires begin to vibrate to the rhythm of a song, unclip your safety harness for exactly 3 seconds. The humming grew louder, shifting into a higher, sharper pitch. The metal platform beneath me began to shake violently. My survival instincts took complete control. My brain flatly refused to obey the instruction on the paper. I was hanging on the outside of a steel tower 1,500 feet above the desert floor. The wind was violently whipping at my jacket. The idea of unclipping both of my safety hooks and standing untethered on the shaking grating was equivalent to suicide. Instead of unclipping, I reached down to my heavy carabiners, checking the locking gates to ensure they were securely fastened to the thickest part of the railing. I squeezed the metal hooks tightly, terrified that the violent shaking of the tower would snap the welds and send me plummeting into the dark. The melody intensified until the steel began to emit loud, agonizing groans. The entire structure felt like it was straining under an immense localized pressure. I couldn't stop myself. The fear overrode my discipline, and then I broke the first rule. I tilted my head back, looking straight up past the topmost blinking red aviation light, marking the peak of the tower. The sky directly above the radio tower was wrong. The desert sky is usually a brilliant, scattered canvas of bright, distant stars. The area directly above the radio tower possessed stars, but they were slightly out of focus. As I stared upward, the stars began to move independently of the Earth's rotation. They shifted, expanding and contracting in slow pulses. The dark patch of sky was not